Iraq's parliament has voted to press for legal action against former Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki and other top Iraqi officials. They are being blamed for the fall of Iraq's second largest city, Mosul, to ISIS last year.
Soon there will be a new person with their finger on the nuclear button, complete command of the American armed forces, and the ability to change the planet in seconds with the deployment of millions of men and women. Which brings up just one simple question. Who among those seeking to be president has the qualifications to hold that power? And is it possible to find one that actually listens to the advice of those who understand the art of war? So let's get to it. Welcome back the former advisor to General David Petraeus and former intelligence officer, Colonel Derek Harvey. Colonel Harvey, I want to thank you for joining us. We're going to get right to that point about who gets that finger on the button and who can handle it. But I want to hit two things right up here at the top. First of all, there's a report that came out, the Iraqi parliament blaming the country's former Prime Minister, Nouri al-Maliki, for everything that has happened, specifically in Mosul itself. Al-Maliki has come out and said, has no value whatsoever. What I did was exactly what needed to be done. Come on, Colonel Harvey. Anybody can look at this and see that al-Maliki was an absolute disaster, yes?
Absolutely right. He undermined the security forces. He put his political cronies in charge of commands up in the Mosul area. He ignored critical intelligence that was delivered to him about what was happening, and he riled up the Sunni Arab community. He cracked down on peaceful demonstrations. Assassinations and corruption was rampant in his administration. It gave rise to the rebellion.
But we're the ones who put him there, yes? We're the ones who decided that he was the right guy to run the show. Let me just ask you point blank. Have we gotten smarter since al-Maliki, and could we actually make a decision now to have somebody run a country and not screw it up as badly as he did?
I don't think we've learned the right lessons. I don't think we quite understand how to navigate and assert what is in the best interest of the United States when we're engaging in a place like Iraq. We're there because it's in our national interest, and we are too often too differential rather than asserting what's important to the United States.
All right, now let me switch from Iraq to Iran, because here's the second big piece of news that came out earlier today. Democratic Senator Bob Menendez out of New Jersey said he is coming out against the Iran deal that President Obama's administration has cut. Now, he's a big name. It's a big blow to the White House. But Colonel Harvey, again, let's talk facts here. Isn't it reality that at this point, where it is right now, this deal is going to go through? Nice to have these people who are seeing the light finally, but this does look like a deal the president's still going to push through.
I think the hurdle is just too high to keep this deal from going through, because you're going to have to overcome a presidential veto, which requires 2/3. There can be an effort to undermine some of the execution, implementation, and not release some of the congressional legislative sanctions, but this deal looks like it's going through, despite Menendez and Schumer and others coming out on the Democratic side against it, to show that this is a bipartisan effort against this deal.
All right, now, let me talk about a second point here, because the article actually came out earlier this week, and I thought it was fascinating. You wrote this in the Weekly Standard, saying that the president and Hillary Clinton are the ones responsible for Iraq today. Now, yesterday we spoke with General Hugh Shelton, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and we brought this up to him. I wanted you to hear his answer.
I told President Bush when I was his principal military advisor that we should not invade Iraq, and I felt very strongly about that. I still believe that was the first mistake, and then of course it has continued to get worse and worse over the years.
In that, he's basically saying it is tough to ignore the fact that President Bush had a major role in the situation, and that is where it all got started. Now, I know that perhaps will brush a little bit against what you believe. Do you have any belief in there? And should we go back to President Bush and just start there, or do we need to just stop placing blame?
Well, I think you have to understand what happened with President Bush and the decisions and the extremely poor execution and lack of planning that took place, and their inability to adjust those first few years in the campaign. And you got to learn from history. And unfortunately, my point in this article is that even with such close history, the Obama administration and Secretary Clinton did not heed the lessons of history. They toppled a regime in Libya and created a disaster because they did not have a plan for the aftermath. And we see the results of that with ISIS spreading into that area that's ungoverned. You've got people drowning in the Mediterranean, trying to flee the disaster there. You've got starvation and countless numbers of horrific acts being taken place there. That's the result of a Clinton decision.
Colonel Harvey, I've only got about 20 seconds left, and I started this at the top of the segment right here. Is there anybody currently running for president, left or right, that you believe has the ability, has the knowledge to be able to run the American military?
I think that there are a number of candidates out there. Governor Jeb Bush, Senator Marco Rubio, the Governor Kasich from Ohio. Those with executive experience running a state are more prepared than others. But there's a lot of homework that's been done. I hear that they've been studying and they learn the right lessons and they ask tough questions. I'm confident in these people.
Well, let's hope that at least somebody who runs a military will indeed listen to the advisors, such as yourself. Thank you, Colonel Derek Harvey. Pleasure to have you on the show. We'll talk again soon, and the Hardline will continue.